Live. Everywhere. On netrootsradio.com. David Waldman. Kagro. In the morning. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It is Monday, June 30th, 2025. This is it for June. Wrapping it up, and I don't know, another one falls by the wayside, I guess. This is, I think, round number 1,300 days left in what is legally thought to be the Donald Trump administration. But you never know these days with how that will come out. But if everything were normal, and it's not, his term would come to an end. 1,300 days, and how nice that it would fall a round number like this on the last day of the month. I don't know, maybe that's by design. At any rate, it's still a long way to go. And he makes every day chaotic and upsetting. And of course, weekends, usually more so than otherwise. It's usually when he makes his most trouble because he gets himself unfiltered in front of a microphone on his way back and forth to a golf outing. I don't know if it registered with me this weekend somehow. Now, there was lots to do, of course, and next weekend is the big holiday weekend, and I assume that the opportunity to stand in front of more flags than usual and maybe some exploding things, because fireworks will probably drag some more out of him. But it is a holiday weekend, and he might just loaf even harder than usual, but I don't. Anyway, this weekend was mostly marked by things that he had taped on Friday, I think. He had a big interview with Maria Bartiromo. Do I have that right? She's got a confusing and weird last name. And anyway, I saw snippets of that coming out that aired on Sunday, and he says the usually crazy thing. I shouldn't sweep it under the rug, but I mean, I'm just saying that, we should be ending democracy, or everybody should give me money as bribes, whatever, normal Trump stuff and abnormal everybody else stuff. So there's lots to catch up on there. And late-breaking weekend stories that we'll probably get around to at some point during today's broadcast. And then, of course, like I said, the big holiday weekend coming. It looks like I'm going to skip town again. And I'm going to do so early. So we'll probably be out of here Thursday and Friday. And, in order to make the whole drive and everything worth it, maybe it might stretch into Monday. We might need to come back on Monday. We won't make it back in time for a show. We'll let you know if that changes. In the meantime, that means poor Greg Dworkin might be deprived of his Thursday and Monday fixes, and we'll see, how that stuff works out as we move on. Anyway, I need to do some work on these things to make sure that there's no commercials in them, but I got some nice YouTube suggested fanfares from Scott, and I forgot to put them aside and tape them and edit them so there would definitely be no commercials. So I'll skip over to our free sound effects from Upbeat. They pay us nothing, but it's fun. And this one seems appropriate. Well, it's a short and easy, and we'll announce Greg this way with a little retro video game type fanfare. Oh, that doesn't even sound like video game if you ask me, but there's another one that I saw earlier that was like, oh no, that one actually sounds pretty good. And then I, of course, went to go and find it. Maybe this one. No, that's the same one. All right, well. I don't like this at all. This is not good. Is it listen, level complete? Maybe that sounds better. Okay, we'll use that one. Good morning, Greg.
Hi, I like that last one. It reminds me of Monty Python, Michael Palin playing the piano naked,
Oh, yeah. I guess
or the organ or whatever.
I like it, yeah. It's a video game thing, but now they're all video game things. So, okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
But
well,
I think what I'll
short
do...
and easy. A sting, if you will. Yes?
Yeah, a sting. Maybe what I'll do is I will send you... Oh, yeah, here it is.
Okay.
There is a wonderful soundtrack from the video game Claire Obscure. One of the things that makes the video game so much fun is the soundtrack. So,
all right,
here it
I will
is,
accept
and you
that.
can pick something next week to do it. Give it to your sound engineer.
Yes, he's very good at that, and
I'll even send you the part of the 3-hour thing that I really like. The 30 seconds. But
hey, all right,
it's fun.
See, I should have given this assignment to him. Make sure these are taped and ready to go. I'm not that exploitative. It was the weekend.
Yeah, don't try this at home, folks. We are professionals.
Yes. Okay. So, what's up?
So the thing is, Independence Day, according to Google, is a federal holiday, and if July 4th is a Saturday,
it's not.
We observe it on Friday. If it's on a Friday, we observe it on Friday.
What?
We observe it whatever day
observe
it
it
is.
Just that
and if
day?
It's on a Sunday, we observe it on Monday.
Yeah.
So that's how come it's all over the place, and I never remember when July 4th is celebrated because it depends.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Usually they make it obvious by stacking beer in the aisles of the supermarket.
Yeah.
Around here,
except if it's a Sunday where you have to put a blanket over it.
Well, that's because the beer is
No, we talked about that last week.
Shh, beer is sleeping.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Right, and you can't have those. And the guy who inspired that discussion, he's still around and running for mayor, and people are still in the business of pretending that worries them.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that. But first I want to play a video.
Oh, yes. All right, I
don't know how long it is. It's not all that long, but it's
when
worth
I say
listening
ready,
to. It's a fellow named Thom, Thom Tillis, from North Carolina.
Okay.
Who's soon to be the ex-senator from North Carolina. That is to say, he's announced that he knows that everybody hates him. Everybody hates him.
No.
MAGA hates him because he voted no on the one big beautiful bill. And everybody else who's not MAGA hates him because, he's worth hating. But he knows that, and so he's going to continue to vote no on this one big beautiful bill because it's screwing North Carolina. And I just wish there were more jerks like him on the Republican side who realize that you really, in the end, have to do the right thing and then just bite the bullet and retire.
Okay, well, that's how they usually go out. Now, I was preparing to play your video.
Flake.
And, oh, yeah, right. Good recollection there. There are several.
Yeah, a couple.
But I was preparing to get things ready. 9 times out of 10, when you press the button, all right, I want to hear the video. Click, and then it says, all right, well, it's now rolling the video, but it's muted, so you'll have to pause.
Do it again.
Turn up the sound, rewind. So I did that thinking, I'll do that while Greg's talking. Nope, this is the 99th time. The percentile. It just started rolling on us. All right, so here comes Thom Tillis, on the Senate floor in a bolo tie. Interesting for North Carolina, explaining why now, at the end of a year career in the Senate, he's just discovered that government sucks and it's not
a long
really for
and
him.
Extinguished career.
I like that. That's good.
Between the state-directed payments and the cuts scheduled in this bill, there's a reduction of state-directed payments.
Oh, my God. He sounds like a Democrat just explaining things.
And then there's the reduction of the provider tax. They can't find a hole in my estimate. So what they told me is that, yeah, it's rough, but North Carolina's used the system. They're going to have to make it work. All right. So what do I tell 663,000 people in 2 years or 3 years when President Trump breaks his promise by pushing them off of Medicaid because the funding's not there anymore, guys?
I mean, you can stop there. The rest of it's not all that important.
People yelling at him there at that point because there was some disruption in the Senate gallery yesterday as well. What is he wearing? This is interesting. I mean, in the sense that nothing.
Well, also shaved his white beard.
Oh, I don't know. I didn't realize that he had that. But he's in a.
Well, if you look at my pundit roundup, which is right at the top there.
Yeah.
You'll see him with a white beard.
I guess that means I didn't look at your pundit roundup. Oh well.
Yeah, it's in the list.
It's
right above the video, actually.
Oh, okay. Well, look, let me get to it. I'll take a look at the snow white beard and see how it looks. But he's casually dressed. Maybe is this yesterday's footage? So it's Sunday. They're working in the Senate, so they feel entitled to dress down a little bit. He's got a maybe collared shirt. I can't even tell. He must because he's wearing a bolo tie. It'd be weird to wear that with a collarless shirt. But nobody's going to mistake him for
John Fetterman.
No, that's true. But he's got the jacket on. It's very, it's very understated. And I am stating that he's leaving government. So why not? All right, let me see if I can. I want to find. Where's the picture? You can go ahead and I will find the picture. And then
it's right in that spot. So, I mean, the point is he realizes that this bill really sucks. I mean, it just really sucks. And they all do. But the reason that they're voting for it isn't necessarily fear of Trump. It's that. And, of course, they fear for their lives. It's that too. But
they don't think Trump is going to kill them.
really want to extend the tax cut. They are deathly afraid of not extending the tax cut because zero Republicans will vote for them in the next primary or election.
Yeah.
If they let the tax cut expire. That's what's driving them.
All right.
And that's why it's going to pass.
Yeah. Well, very likely. And a lot of them also, sometimes they think, well, I'll steal a bunch of money and be rich and then I'll retire and whatever. I think Christine
or you can try like Lisa Murkowski to bargain for your state. And they can try to fig leaf hide it by saying, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to give bonuses to non-contiguous states. We're not doing this for Alaska.
Yeah, it could be.
We're doing it for all non-contiguous states.
Any of you guys want to be non-contiguous, go ahead.
Yeah, just go ahead, right? So Bugs Bunny can saw Florida off, and it will work, right?
Yeah, and they might do it too.
Because then it's a non-contiguous state.
Right.
So
not non-contiguous islands that aren't states, Puerto Rico.
The Murkowski got a whole bunch of plums and sweeteners in the bill.
Sweetener plums.
And then the parliamentarians said, no, you can't do that.
No.
Which is important because in theory that means Murkowski will be voting against the bill when it comes out. What they voted on is let's let it proceed. But then the actual vote comes up today, as soon as today, because they're finished reading the bill, I think, or they're finishing reading the bill that Schumer demanded.
Yeah.
And I'm just saying that you might think Murkowski would be a no, but she won't be. Because, they all fold.
Yeah, Susan Collins already folded on the thing where she said,
she
her
folded
story was
on the proceed and didn't commit to the final, which is why the newspapers are saying, well, it's not clear it's going to pass. It's going to pass because they're deathly afraid of this tax increase.
Yeah, and Collins's deal is, well, I'm going to vote yes on the procedural bill, the procedural vote, that is to proceed to the thing, and then vote. I might yet vote no on the underlying bill, but if you bring the thing to the floor,
to pass, I might vote no.
Yeah, exactly. So what I'm doing is I'm setting up that play whereby if we go around and count and there are 50 or 51 votes for it, and we can use the vice president or whatever, and it's okay if I vote no, then I will do it then when it doesn't matter. But for now, when we're not sure, I'll vote yes.
I'll reserve the option of screwing my state.
I'm very deeply concerned.
I'm troubled even.
Yeah. I've seen the picture now of Thom Tillis with his white beard, and he like a lot of guys who have white beards, looks a lot younger when he shaves it off.
It's a short white beard.
Yeah.
And he sort of looks like Robert E. Lee. And it's a picture of him speaking, I guess, in a panel, or I don't know how the Senate does it, but
in a committee.
In a committee, and there's two nameplates. So it's taken from an angle, so the nameplate isn't exactly in front of him.
Right.
So this is a picture with this this gentleman with a short white beard. So this is either Mr. Tillis or is Mrs. Blackburn. It's one of them.
Yeah, and the angle is he's gesticulating with both hands, and each one of the hands appears to hover over the nameplate. So it's like he has hand puppets. And this is Mr. Tillis, and this is Mrs. Blackburn.
That's pretty funny.
Hi, everybody. We don't have any puppets on these hands.
Right, and standing behind him is Marco Rubio, and the reason they pick Rubio is he's so short you can't see him.
Right, and over the shoulder.
Those are actually Marco Rubio's hands.
That could be true, although they're too big for Trump's. So
they're too big for Trump, but of course Marco Rubio's head just comes just where the table is, so you can't really see him.
Okay, so Thom Tillis. By the way, what time is it? It's 1 minute to midnight. Oh, I have integrity. All right, thanks.
Yeah. It's 1 minute to retiring.
Yep.
So Tillis announces he won't run again as Trump threatens him with a primary. In Washington, over the last few years, it's become increasingly evident that leaders who are willing to embrace bipartisanship, compromise, and demonstrate independent thinking are becoming an endangered species. That's really nice of you to say about Jeff Flake. The announcement came as the Senate was wading into a debate over the large-scale tax cut and domestic policy bill that Mr. Trump has demanded be delivered to his desk by July 4th. That would be Friday.
That's right.
Mr. Tillis announced his decision the day after issuing a statement saying he couldn't in good conscience support the measure, which he said would lead to tens of billions of dollars in lost funding for state, costing people Medicaid coverage and critical health services, which is all true. So, that's part of it. Now, this is a piece from the Bulwark entitled, The Public's Resisting Trump, the Elites Aren't. The president's encountering little resistance as he remakes society, and yet polling is clear voters aren't with him.
Remake society. All right.
Well, he is, because by getting rid of Obamacare and by getting rid of Medicaid and getting rid of vaccines,
I guess that's true.
He is.
Yeah, right. Like Fat Man and Little Boy got rid of, changed
Yeah,
society.
I mean, it's not like he's doing it because he's convinced the public to follow him.
Right.
They hate this. But, he's in charge.
It is happening to society.
And it's happening to society on his watch, and so you can fairly say that.
I would say, yeah. I can't disagree, but I am allowed to, briefly.
Yeah.
So I will.
So much of the private sector, says the Bulwark, is too timid to embrace the cause of defending liberty in a free society. Things could be worse. They'd be worse if the American people were enthusiastically supporting Trump's actions, but they're not. Okay. That might make the inability or unwillingness of their, quote, leaders, end quote, scare quotes, to resist Trump more forcefully seem inexplicable, but there's also hope that with the public resisting, these leaders might eventually stiffen their spines a bit. Tillis did.
Wow.
There's some fresh evidence of public resistance in a new poll from Quinnipiac. It shows 41% of voters approving the way Trump is handling his job, 54% disapprove. And by the way, if you were to go to some of the big sites that follow everything, Trump's approval is at 43.1, which is pretty much the lowest it's been his entire term. Disapprove is 53.4, which is just a tad under 53.9, his highest disapproval. And he, depending upon which partisan poll you look at, he's either underwater or, if you're RMG research, everybody loves Trump.
Okay. Well, that's an interesting role to have.
Yeah. Now, he's underwater on all the issues. Immigration, he's now down 6 points on average.
Okay.
Overall, he's down 10, minus 10. On deportation, he's minus 12. So immigration, minus 6, deportation, minus 12. The public does recognize those are two separate categories in their minds and in the polls. They don't like his policy on deportation. They used to love it. He used to have a 15-point plus. Now it's
when it was theoretical, I guess.
Now it's a minus 10. Well, also, it's a minus 12. But they see individuals like Carol from Missouri, and they go, no, this isn't what we wanted.
Yeah. Did they figure
she's
out?
Still in limbo.
Oh. I'm surprised.
She's out of jail,
that would be the sort of thing that Trump would reach down
Limbo,
and
Missouri.
say,
That's a small town of about 45 people and 3 cows.
Yeah. Well, it could be.
It's just next to Effigy, Kansas, where you hang people.
I guess what happens in Intercourse, Pennsylvania, no one knows. Whatever it is, it stays there.
We're not allowed to talk about it.
I thought that the Trump plan on most of these things, and maybe they did it as far as was necessary, and her release has been enough because we haven't heard more about her. So maybe that's enough for the people in the neighborhood.
Well, our effectless, that is to say, lack of effect, news people.
None given.
They write a story and then they don't.
I guess that's it. But yeah, I was wondering, I thought and I guess
we can go searching. We can see if local news.
I am a little bit interested because of my thinking. My current theory, and I think everybody's theory really is that Trump deals with these things when his people find out that the leopards are eating their faces and complain. He, I guess, gets the leopard to throw up and gives back that face and says, we're done here. And then there's maybe a follow-up piece celebrating she's out. Hooray. She's not out of legal jeopardy. But they may not distinguish between released and out of legal jeopardy. And then, of course, if it happens and there's another story, she's back in jail, he can just do that again.
There hasn't been a story about her since June 4th.
Yeah. Well, it's July 4th almost, so it's time.
Yeah, it's been a month. So
check it out.
There really has been nothing.
All right. Well, yeah. So, I mean, I'm sure that her legal status hasn't changed. They probably haven't gotten around to any hearings or anything. But, yeah, so it could absolutely happen that she quietly just all right, well, you're going back in the lockup, and we're sending you away.
There's nothing right about right now. We're just waiting for the other shoe to drop because they could still deport her.
Yeah. All right.
So to finish out the polling averages here from G. Elliott Morris,
yes,
job in the economy -15, trade -17, and then inflation cost of living -22. And that inflation cost of living is top on everybody's list of things they care about.
Trump will fix it. Kamala high prices, Trump low prices.
Yeah, look at Biden. Right, exactly. So all of that stuff. So no, he's not doing well in the polls. Republicans aren't doing well in the polls. And that, again, normally would matter. But what's normal? What matters is that Republicans want a tax cut, and they'll just do anything and everything to get there.
He's still president. They still have a majority. They're very unpopular, but they have the job.
Right. So Bulwark drills down a little bit and says, more striking is this: on Trump's signature issue of immigration and deportation, central in so many ways to his authoritarian project, 64% of voters say they prefer giving most undocumented immigrants a pathway to legal status, and only 31% say they prefer deporting most of them. In December 2024, these numbers were 55 versus 36, so Trump is losing ground. What's more, 56% of respondents in the Q poll disapprove of the way ICE is doing its job, 55% disapprove of sending National Guard troops to L.A., and 60% disapprove of sending in the Marines. Cause for optimism, but also befuddlement, because couldn't Democrats in Congress do more to point out that the one big beautiful bill increases spending for the unpopular masked men of ICE and their deportations? But making that point is unnecessary. Maybe the Q poll shows it's already extraordinarily unpopular. An unusually high 71% of respondents say they've heard or read a lot and they don't like it. 55% of voters oppose the bill, 29% support it, and 16% are unsure and have no opinion.
Yeah, not the ones who read a lot.
This is the signature legislation of a new president.
Only legislation. Oh, right.
And it only has 29% support in the public. That's incredible.
Yeah. It's, I mean, back in the olden days when stuff was normal and presidents who were Democratic came in and they had a signature legislative initiative and it was overwhelmingly unpopular or made overwhelmingly unpopular, it didn't pass. Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton too, know a little something about that. And sometimes you have to wait 10 years to pass that thing.
Data for Progress zooms in a little bit. This is North Carolina. A majority of North Carolina voters, remember Thom Tillis is from North Carolina. Even after he retires, he'll still be from North Carolina.
Maybe.
They want their senators to vote against the GOP's tax and spending bill.
No, well, he's doing it. Why is he retiring?
First, voters in the state were asked if various groups should pay more or less in taxes. A bipartisan majority of North Carolina voters agree that corporations and households making $400,000 or more in income should pay more in taxes.
Does Thom Tillis know this?
And the reason you ask, do you support or oppose this tax and spending bill? All likely North Carolina voters support 38, opposed 57. It's a -19.
Yeah.
Republicans support the bill 67-28. So Tillis is not worried about getting reelected. He's worried about his primary.
Well, he should talk to Andrew Cuomo and what's the other guy's name who's actually mayor? That guy. And
Eric Adams.
Yeah, Eric Adams. Okay, and they're not worried about their primaries. Maybe they could teach him something.
My pollster friend Adam Carlson, recovering pollster friend Adam Carlson on Twitter says, something I've noticed over the past few days, many political junkies outside of New York City seem to think Eric Adams has a good shot of beating Ma'am Danny in the general election. I don't know a single serious New York City-based political junkie who thinks that, especially with Curtis Sliwa staying in.
Right. And boy, is
Curtis
he junky.
Sliwa is the Republican nominee who will probably get 10% if Cuomo's in and 20% if he's not. Adams isn't winning.
No. It doesn't seem like that's likely, no. But all I'm saying is other people have said, oh, no, my problem is the primary, but what if I just go, primary? What, where's North Carolina for Tillis party? Where's Joe Lieber? Call him up.
What'll happen is the MAGA guy running will get 60, and Tillis will get 30,
right,
and Curtis Lewa will get 10.
Yeah, that may be, maybe. I don't know.
Because every state has a Curtis Lewa.
I guess so. North Carolina has got one. We saw it last time.
I mean, Virginia's running them on the Republican side for governor, but every state has a Curtis Lewa.
Mm-hmm. And that's why Curtis Lewa thinks he can win things.
Right. So then asking about specific components, in a series of split tests, the survey finds that opposition to funding cuts for Medicaid and ACA subsidies, as well as SNAP, the food stamps part, is higher when voters are informed of what they are.
Wow.
And informed of the estimated numbers of North Carolinians who would lose health coverage or food assistance as a result of these proposed cuts. Opposition ranges from 63 to 70 for healthcare cuts, and food assistance cuts ranges from 63 to 67. In a similar split test, 51% of North Carolina voters opposed tax cuts with limited context. 67% opposed them when informed they would benefit the wealthiest households. So this is a huge liability. North Carolina isn't your most liberal state, and that's no good. By 2-to-1 margin, North Carolina voters say that GOP's tax policies won't benefit their families. It's a microcosm of what everybody will see. This is going to be a disaster for the Republicans come the next election. I don't see how you get around that. They are so committed to voting for it because they're just deathly afraid of everything.
Yeah. It's kind of a bizarre situation to watch Tillis. Like, okay, well, it's a terrible situation if they vote for it. But as it happens, it looks like it's a terrible situation if they don't vote for it either. I mean, it's a terrible situation in that I'm not going to be a senator whether I vote for it or against it. But I don't know. So I guess it's interesting that there are still people who are like, well, I might as well go out doing the right thing.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Because I thought they were all
one.
dead.
I'd like 4.
Yeah, if you got more, let me know. But all right. Anyway, it's interesting to see at the last second. I'll remember it briefly.
Hi, I'm Scott Anderson, the guy that writes the daily summary for this show, Kagro in the Morning. Thank you to everyone that supports this show. Many of you send donations through PayPal, Patreon, Square Cash, Radio Public, and so on. Some of you write your own essays and send them in, or read articles with your own commentary. We appreciate it. Now, some of you are listening to this and thinking, I'd like to help, but isn't there something I could do that wouldn't require money or effort? Why, yes, there is. You can just like us. On Daily Kos, they call it the recommend button. YouTube has a thumbs up. There are hearts and likes and love buttons. Tap our love button. Tap our love button every day. Share our shows and summaries on Facebook and Twitter, YouTube and iTunes, Stitcher and Amazon. Most of these places allow you to write a review, so a sentence or two would be great. Recommend us to social media, or tell your friends to listen to the show. You aren't just helping us, you're helping them find their new favorite thing to listen to. You could change the world. So thank you in advance from me and everybody else in the world.
All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. I forgot during the commercial I should have gotten wildly corrupt to get in step with the times, but I didn't.
Oh, you didn't have time?
Yeah, I know. I was talking about, I don't know, other things. Well, Charlie McCarthy, for one thing. I don't know how we got to that. Not the other McCarthy that everybody's afraid of, but... Okay, Thom Tillis, the extra H is for honesty, and he's... Yeah.
Thillis.
He should put one in there, too.
Yeah.
All right, well, he's on his way out because...
T3OM,
reasons.
the 3 is silent, that one of those things.
Yeah.
This is the Bulwark, Jonathan Cohen.
Again?
A $1 trillion Medicaid cut is this close to happening. Here's what it would look like. Republicans are about to slash a lifeline for the needy in North Carolina. People are preparing for chaos and calamity.
Yeah, well, you don't get to $1 trillion without a little chaos and calamity.
And all these stories, of course, have to give you an individual, so they talk about an individual that's having a problem. But I'm going to skip that and go to the legislation that Donald Trump is pushing and Republicans are trying to pass by July 4th seeks to cut Medicaid by nearly $1 trillion. That's like real money. Over the next 10 years through a variety of changes that could include everything from so-called work requirements, more on that from Arkansas, which tried it and a big failure, to complex changes in financing that could directly or indirectly lower the federal government's contributions to the program. In other words, backdoor way of getting rid of the Affordable Care Act.
Yeah, that was the gobbledygook that Tillis was doing. He's right.
is the key word there, because the emerging bill is different than the bill House Republicans approved, and some House members are already saying they can't vote for it, but they're liars, so I don't pay attention.
Yeah, I mean, they'll go ahead and do it. It'll be fixed. Oh, also, I guess one option open to them is if the parliamentarian says you can't do this in the legislation, they have the option of passing legislation that doesn't do that and then saying the legislation requires this and pretending it does, and that it was in there. And finding judges who say, yeah, it was in there, and then then they get those cuts.
Yeah.
So.
Well, Democrats can always sue and get a nationwide oh wait, no, they can't.
No.
Well, they can if they do class action, all hospitals, or I don't know. Something.
Okay. No. Probably no. What we found out, of course, at the end of last week with the Supreme Court is the new rule, which is the old rule. Republicans, can you interpret the law and Constitution as you feel with vibes it should read? Yes. Oh, yeah, well, watch this. When the next Democratic president comes in, he'll be able to do that. No, he won't, because they will say, no, that doesn't apply to you. That's a major
it only applies to Republicans.
Doctrine. Major, what the hell do they call it? I've already forgotten the second word. Major questions doctrine, because it was made up. And I don't remember it, and it doesn't make any intuitive sense, so I can't remember the name.
Right. I think they call it the major fantasy doctrine.
Yeah, basically. Heads I win, tails you lose. Okay. Fine. So, all right.
So the Bulwark points out Republicans have made threats to tank big bills before ultimately falling in line, and there's a good reason to think they'll do so again. Downsizing Medicaid is a long-time goal of many conservatives who believe society is better off with less government. Plus, the bill with Medicaid also has lots of tax cuts, which pretty much the entire party's desperate to pass.
Yeah. Oh, I hear.
Now, the public's not too enthusiastic about it. Republicans say the experts making these predictions can't be trusted. But if you go down to North Carolina and talk to folks, because everybody ran down to North Carolina to see what's going on here, it's a leaning red state with Thom Tillis, and so it's like perfect for West Virginia diner style interviews, and everybody does, and everybody down there hates it.
Mm. Well, running to North Carolina in the summer season is very popular here in Washington, D.C. So the press corps went vacationing on the Outer Banks, and on their way through said,
I love that.
A diner.
Yeah. We needed to find some people who really know what the Trump tax deal is all about. So we went to the Riviera.
Yeah, exactly.
Everybody here on the beach, and
but on the way
we got a lot of information, and I'll get back to you in September.
I know where they got their information. They stopped the people if you know, they were like, oh well, we can't just wait to get to the gigantic vacation houses with 8 bedrooms to ask people, because they're mostly from out of state. So we'll stop at Grandy Greenhouse on the way down, where we'll buy some tomatoes and ice cream for the kids, and they're salt of the earth. That's farm. So we'll ask them how they feel about millionaire landowner farmers. Yeah. Well, we love Trump, and this is terrible, or whatever.
Yeah. Right.
Okay.
So this is from the New York Times on June 8th, still relevant. We saw Medicaid work requirements up close. They're talking about Arkansas. You don't want this chaos.
I don't. Neither does the next door neighbor's dog.
Over 18,160 people in Arkansas lost coverage in only 5 months before courts halted the policy. Many were our clients. Adrian McGonigal had chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, for which he received treatment. At the time, he held a working job, 30 to 40 hours a week.
Yeah.
The state system for automatically identifying working people was faulty. He struggled to navigate the complex monthly reporting system. Unable to report, he lost his Medicaid. He couldn't afford to keep working, and then he died. We saw many working people face similar challenges. Our clients ran the gamut of low-wage work, fast food, restaurant dishwashers, construction workers, janitors, landscapers, motel cleaners, gas station clerks, nursing assistants. Many had disabilities, and they couldn't work because they lost their coverage for asthma, injuries, cancer, mental health conditions. Others lost insurance because of the instability of low-wage work. Bosses cut their hours or laid them off without warning. Limited public transit narrowed their options, or they lived in struggling rural areas where jobs are hard to come by. And when the state cut them off, their health worsened. They couldn't get other jobs because there weren't other jobs that they could get to, as well as the ability to work new ones. Nobody on Medicaid was free from the tumult despite outreach from the state, widespread panic, because it depended what kind of Medicaid you have. People didn't know if they had the type of Medicaid that the new requirements applied. They received confusing 10-page letters from the state, which often contradicted other coverage letters they got at the same time. The website to report compliance shut down every night at 9 p.m., so if your shift was in the wrong time, you couldn't tell the state you were working. You name it, everything went wrong. It was terrible. But that's what they want.
Well, yes. They make... Well, oh my gosh, that's... The neighbor's dog just hates this thing. Usually a very quiet dog.
I thought that was my new fanfare.
Right. But, right, she's just a very quiet dog, so I was like, well, somebody must have, they treat a possum. But that wouldn't bother her. There has to be a dragon in the tree in order for her to bark like this. So.
The Republicans just cut out my lunch. I just found out about it.
The Republicans definitely are excited about this disaster. I happen to have an unrelated article that I saw yesterday that I'll save for another day. But intentional disaster is a business tactic these days, and it's now a political tactic as well. We know that this isn't going to work. We've tried it before and it doesn't work, but it doesn't work in a very particular way that makes things terrible for people we do not care about. Right. And so we're not worried.
So New York mayoral election, two interesting aspects of it. Aspect number one, Ishan Tharoor, writing in the Washington Post, Mamdani.
Wow. Yes.
Zoran Mamdani.
Zoran the Destroyer.
A global trend of mayors standing up to nationalists, and he cites Sadiq Khan in London, Anne Hidalgo in Paris. The left-wing, center-left mayors in Milan and Rome standing up to Giorgia Meloni in Italy. And there's others around the world. And so this is not an unusual situation for the mayors. As he puts it, the difference here is that the populists promise things and mayors have to deliver. And so a lot of the mayors wind up saying, well, we can't, like if you kick out all of the undocumented and, in your mind, questionable citizens, there's nobody left to actually do work. And so our city falls apart, so we're not going along with this, and so on and so forth.
I see.
So I thought that was interesting. The other interesting thing that was pointed out is again, we've mentioned this, but it's just so stark now that the numbers are back. Age distribution of voters in New York City mayoral elections.
I see.
In 2021, the cohort that was most likely to vote, and it was pretty evenly distributed starting at age 25, because the lowest were the 80 to 84s and 85 plus. But if you're looking at 18 to 24s, they came in third lowest. And the highest cohort that voted was 60 to 64, followed by 65 to 69. That's reasonably typical. Yeah. In 2025, by far, the biggest cohorts were 18 to 24, followed by 25 to 29, followed by 30 to 34. They dwarfed everybody else.
That must be why the dog is barking.
So the young kids came out, and they voted for Mamdani, and that's one of the reasons that he won.
Right. One of the kids
a lot of other people voted for him, too, and I still haven't seen the finals, so I'm not sure how that's going to turn out, but I'm still expecting him to win by 12 or 13 points when all the votes are counted.
Yeah.
Which will influence whether or not Andrew Cuomo actually runs or just makes noise.
Yes.
He likes making noise.
First he said, I'm not going to make noise, and then everybody reported that, and I'm just kidding, I am going to make noise. So noise is being made, and now we'll see whether the noise is actually goodbye, but we'll find out. But yeah, that was kind of good news about that, and very interesting data to see. And I happened to see, heading into the weekend, I think, what's his name from Fox News, Jesse Waters, saying, Mamdani's nomination is going to destroy the Democratic Party in general, the whole thing, whatever.
Sure.
And he called him Zoran the Destroyer, which cool. I guess he thought, yeah, right. And people are like, I don't think that's going to do with the 18 to 24-year-old voters who put him over the top what you think it's going to do. That's going to be merchandise next week with laser beams coming out of his eyes, and people are going to get excited. And I missed the election. I wish I had voted. Zorhan the Destroyer. That's going to work. I don't know how long he's going to do that. That might be the end of that one. By the way, the update from the neighbor dog, we've translated the barking, and the answer, what he's saying is there is a raccoon wedged in between your sliding glass door and the storage bin outside. And I don't know if we've fixed that or not, but here the raccoon may be cozy, but that's what's happening. This dog now is going to be able to get face to face within inches of a stuck raccoon. That'll excite most dogs.
Yeah, I suppose. So, what, Jesse Waters claimed that Mamdani's first name was Gozer?
Yes, right. I'm surprised he didn't go with characterizing him as that Zoltan Speaks machine from the movie Big somehow. But
that's
Zorhan the Destroyer. And that led to all sorts of memes and everything. And I think that will play enormously well for the super ironic Park Slope electorate. They're going to love it. It's going to be, and it's funny, and it's a dumb panic from a dumb guy, and everyone should enjoy that.
Right. So again, the mayoral primary was at least a week ago.
100 years ago. Oh my God.
And New York City Board of Elections, BOE.
Oh, okay. I was
Not
like
to be
a Board of
Board
Elections?
of Education, I always do. Board of Elections still hasn't caught up with actually counting the votes yet, which is not surprising.
I heard that as abortive. Like, what happened? They had the election. Oh, a Board of Election. Okay, got you. Sorry. There's a dog.
So still waiting, still looking neighborhood by neighborhood for neighborhoods I know and friends there and so on and so forth.
Yes.
Just all of it's really fascinating. But ranked choice tallies are expected maybe tomorrow.
All right. And they really
on a
are
Tuesday.
parsing
it's a
this
week
like
after
crazy.
the election, so maybe they'll actually have it. Who knows?
Among voters who prefer white pizza, in this neighborhood, the results are these. Those, okay, great, fine, okay.
Well, the Upper West Side is more liberal than the Upper East Side, but the Upper West Side also has a lot of Jewish voters, and that narrowly went for Cuomo, whereas the Upper East Side went strongly for Cuomo. But nonetheless, Manhattan as a whole went to Mamdani, and none of it is particularly relevant because Mamdani is going to win the mayoral election in November, and that'll be of interest. Now, what does it all mean? Nothing, but still fascinating.
Yeah. Well,
hey, listen, anybody can get the youth vote out like that. Pay attention. It doesn't mean that it's, we can run a Mamdani here in Idaho for Senate. No. But if you can get the youth vote out, that's just good for you.
Yeah, it is, honestly. And even if you lose, like if you're just getting, there's also lots of studies, and more I see these studies, they keep replicating. If you can get the youth vote to vote, they're much more likely to vote again later, even if they don't like the guy. Right. Even if you're not very exciting. But getting people into the voting habit is an important thing to do. And it's worth doing all by itself. Now, if you also win, hey, that's worth looking at. I did see, though, that there was somebody who had done a report, the inside story of the Cuomo campaign is out somewhere. I haven't read it. But
I think it was New York Magazine.
But what was interesting to me is that it was presented as, well, here was the strategies. And by the way, it almost worked out. And just thinking of how, if you happen to win, if Cuomo were able to somehow were to have pulled this out, despite the fact that they describe a total disaster, lackluster campaign, had it worked anyway, that genius strategy. That's how we should run everywhere. And then people would be saying what we need across the board in every district is boring people who are tarred by scandal.
Right. So I will, at the end of our working list, I will send you a link to this article from New York Magazine called Inside Mamdani's Triumph and Cuomo's Humiliation. The frontrunner couldn't see what was coming. He never got out there.
Yeah, well, he doesn't like that place.
He just never got out there. Mamdani was walking across Manhattan, and Cuomo was like, I'll send a surrogate to talk about this at 2 o'clock this afternoon after I wake up.
Yes. If you don't like being out and about in New York City, well, that's all right. Just don't run for mayor of it, because that's what people expect. If you are going to be mayor of this city, you should like it. And I don't think Eric Adams does either. He doesn't live there, for one thing.
Right.
And neither does Andrew Cuomo. It's just bizarre. But New York is one of a couple of, a handful of cities that you can get away with saying you live in and like without being there, because it's huge. And but also there's a place somewhere that's exclusive and clean that you can say you like, and that's New York.
Right.
But if you're like the grit, that works better. Okay, so Ma'am Danny, well done. Lots more focus on him. They spent the weekend panicking about him and interviewing both Republicans and moderate Democrats, I guess, and featuring people who were willing to
all
say,
the moderate
he
Democrats
scares the hell
say,
out of
look,
me.
I'd like to meet with him first. I have to talk to him, and so on and so forth. When you realize the structure of the New York City greater metropolitan area, and realize that people who live on Long Island see themselves as having fled the city to their enclave, you can understand why Democrats who have Long Island Congress seats, congressional seats,
yes,
are taking it slow. Because essentially they have resentful white ethnics who don't necessarily love the city, and they're being asked their opinion as part of the Democratic Party. What do I think of this guy? But in fact, what they are trying to do is represent their own locations. And, politics being what it is, they're going to say stuff that you won't like.
Yeah.
Get over it. Just ignore it and, focus on the city for now. Everybody changes their tune after you win.
It's probably also a good time to remind everybody, as you've been saying, look, the results, I think, here are going to be a foregone conclusion. So there's plenty of room for posturing, and you're still going to get your mayor out of it. So,
in other words, everybody wants to do a reverse Susan Collins.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter. So I'm going to say what I want for my constituency.
There is that,
but understand that it doesn't matter.
Right. But that doesn't mean you can't say, hey, I don't like that this guy is playing the game. It's distracting and unfortunate, but okay.
So, as is typical, when a lot of stuff happens, by Monday I try to summarize it all, and somehow or other I'm done by 9:45. I don't know how that happens.
The more that happens, the less we have to say about it.
Yeah, exactly. So this is one thing I want to say. This is BBC reporting.
Hello.
Construction activity is visible at Iran's bombed Fordo nuclear facility.
Yeah, cleaning up.
Satellite imagery from Maxar Technology shows heavy construction equipment operating at the Fordo site, one of the sites targeted by the U.S. Images from 29 June show an excavator and a crane at the top of a newly constructed access road close to an area targeted by the American bunker-busting bombs. Construction vehicles are also working at the entrance to the site and at a bomb building on the east side of the complex, both of which were damaged in Israeli strikes the day after the U.S. attacks. According to nuclear weapons expert David Albright, who analyzed imagery, the construction work may include backfilling of craters, carrying out engineering damage assessments, radiological sampling. So the fact that they obliterated Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities means they weren't obliterated. Rafael Grossi, here's the important part of this story, Director General of the International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA.
EIAO.
Yeah. Walla Walla Bing Bang said on Friday that Iran could resume uranium enrichment in a matter of months.
All right.
So that's the objective release. Israel is claiming that they were obliterated and said, well, you have to trust Israeli intelligence. They know what the Ayatollah has to eat for lunch and they know where. Yeah, that's all true.
Yogurt.
But things remain uncertain.
Yeah.
Things remain uncertain. That's not the same thing as we are certain that things have been obliterated and I deserve the Nobel Prize for that. Things
for obliteration
are uncertain.
Is there a Nobel for obliteration?
No. Right. Nor is there a Nobel strategic pause for Middle East conflict.
No. So, I mean, I don't know. I'm not certain what to make of the fact that there's construction other than, Trump will say, yeah, their construction is there because we obliterated it and they want to build it again. That could be true. Or it's not been obliterated and it just needs some light repair in the form of excavators and cranes, which is pretty major. So, yeah, they got bombed and they're trying to rebuild it. That's to be expected. On the other hand, if it was obliterated, they probably would either be, we need larger equipment, or if there was excavation and cranes elsewhere at another site, we're going to build this again,
right?
Because it's been obliterated. But I suppose, yeah.
All right, and then just one last item.
It tells you.
This is from the Wall Street Journal. Nearly 2 million student loan borrowers are set to have their wages garnished for repayment this summer, according to the Wall Street Journal.
Cool.
File this under "There's no difference between the parties."
I guess so. Right. Yeah. Well, the Republican Party wouldn't have had the opportunity to garnish our wages if the Democrats hadn't set that up by forgiving those loans. So there you go. There's not a dime's worth of difference between the two parties. Yeah, you're right. That's, people will say that. Unless Zoran tells them not to, which he might.
So this is something that just came out, and I need an explanation for policy and procedure.
We have enough time for an official explanation.
Roger Marshall tells reporters he will support a Collins amendment. The Collins amendment is top bracket of 25 million single, 50 million married, plus more money for rural hospitals. Collins has said she needs amendments to be a yes on the final bill. This is David Dayen speaking, and this is the part that's confusing to me. Thune can nullify any amendment in the vote-a-rama with a wraparound. I don't know what that means.
A wraparound?
But if he nullifies Collins, he could lose her vote.
Nullifying with a wraparound. I'm not certain exactly what he means, unless when the fact that he's saying nullify it. Like, are we talking about? Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to look that up. That's a new one on me. I'm wondering if it's like having Thune vote yes for the amendment and then be on the winning side of the amendment and then move to reconsider the amendment as someone who has voted on the winning side and then get the Senate to vote no afterwards and undo it. Wraparound. That's a new term for me. I'll take a look.
All right, I sent you the tweet.
All right.
And this is from Tim Tagaris. It's a reminder. After Ned Lamont beat Joe Lieberman in 2006.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead and start again.
Ned Lamont beat Joe Lieberman in 2006 in the Democratic primary for Senate. Lieberman went on to win in the general election by essentially claiming all the Republicans with Republican assistance. Ned Lamont was accused of being anti-troop and having stances supporting terrorists after a plot to blow up planes was stopped. Just a reminder. And many Democrats were asked if they supported Ned or would campaign with him, and most wanted to have nothing to do with him. He was the official Democratic primary. He's now the governor of Connecticut, by the way, as mainstream as they come.
Yes.
But just a reminder, Democrats are cowards.
Yeah.
But it's part of the process. You can't even hold it against them because, it doesn't matter. But I'm just saying, the fact that people aren't rushing to embrace Ma'am Daddy, don't worry about it. Or as we say in New York, forget about it.
That's true, too. It's only been a couple of minutes, really.
Yeah.
So,
but
this
happens all the time. It's no big deal.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as he wins, you forget about it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what you should be thinking and doing. But yeah, that is a very common social media phenomenon. As the whole weekend was spent, or the whole week last week and weekend was spent. Where are why aren't they coming out in support? And
you have nothing to do with New York City. How come you don't have an opinion on the Knicks?
That's true too. But it deserves to be there were people found ways of leveraging that were, okay, well, that's a little more legitimate, but it's still an issue for Democrats in the whole country. Are they going to stick their parts into this where they may or may not really belong. But it becomes a bigger issue, like, for instance, all the fear-mongering, and to have people go out there and do Islamophobic fear-mongering. Oh, my God, Zoran Mamdani is going to turn New York City into a Sharia law-ruled ISIS enclave. Should you be condemning that? Or condemning that people who say that kind of dumb stuff? Yeah, you should. But again, if you're a Democrat from Oregon, like, are you allowed to take your time with that? You know, it really, if that's exactly what happened, and you get to see the tape and you agree that that's what that person was saying, you probably get a fairly instantaneous reaction. But other people whose job it is to, you know, filter the news and discuss with the members of Congress how they will react in public are probably chatting with them about that. And the fact that there's no instantaneous reaction, even though you think you've got your answer ready, it might take some time. But you do hope that people will come out and say, yeah, let's not get back to like early 2000s era insane Islamophobic fear-mongering. There's a large Muslim population in New York City. They're going to elect a mayor one day, and that doesn't mean they're going to turn the place into an ISIS enclave. You're crazy. They're here because they don't want to live in ISIS enclaves. Don't you understand that? Yes, you do. You just want a demagogue. All right. So then that should be easy enough to condemn. All right, I'm going to go find out what David Dayen is talking about so that we can at least discuss it by Wednesday.
Tell me next week.
Yeah.
Or Wednesday or whatever.
Mm-hmm. I'm
all
interested.
Right. In the meantime, I'm gone. You're about to go, and I will see you on Wednesday.
Okay, excellent plan. What a great idea. All right, I guess the raccoon has gotten free too, or the dog has gotten bored. I'm not certain which, or has been brought inside. Thanks, Greg, and we'll catch up with you on Wednesday. And there's the music that says it's true. All right, wraparound. That's going to take me a second to go and figure out what that is. I see David Dayen's post. Which needs amendments to be a yes. I understand that. Or nullify any amendment in the Votorama with a wraparound. Votorama, nullify. I mean, I guess that. And Votorama, of course, changes the dynamics of all the voting. They have limited time, and it may be that he can undo it without debate. All right, welcome back now to the Gator in the Morning Show. Network Radio. Okay, a little garbled here. So, yeah, there's a raccoon, a small raccoon, not a big raccoon, which is what you would think when you say wedged between the door and the storage. That must be because the raccoon is so big. It is, in fact, because the raccoon is so small and dumb that it, young, and that it decided it could make it through that space, and it can't. I am informed that the raccoon is now calmed down, as is the dog, and might be sleeping in that space, or might just have given up being stuck. And so during one of the next breaks, or maybe after the show, the raccoon has to stay and listen to the show. That's its penalty. And then we'll try and unwedge it after that. I'm not certain how much room we have to move that storage bin, though. So whatever. The point is the raccoon's escape has been completely obliterated, and satellite pictures show that it's still there. I have still not figured out what David's talking about with wraparound, and I don't know. I'm just not familiar. That may be a slang term he came up with on his own to describe something, and on the fly, I'm not 100% sure what he'd be talking about, except to say the fact that there was some mention of the Votorama. Remember from this works the same way as budget resolution Votorama does. And does everybody remember what the Votorama is? That you have, because everyone remembers about the budget and reconciliation, certainly about reconciliation, if not the budget, but it's true for both, that there's no filibustering allowed. Why is there no filibuster possible? The answer is because the statute governing consideration of budget resolutions and reconciliation bills says that these bills shall be debated for a certain amount of time only. And if there's a time limit on how long you can debate a bill, then there's no way to filibuster it. Filibuster being extending debate indefinitely for as long as you can. Block cloture, right? However, in whatever form that takes, whether it's a talking filibuster or a sitting around silent filibuster and just every once in a while coming back and voting no on cloture. But there's no need to invoke cloture on a bill that can only be debated for, as with reconciliation, whether 20 hours, it's 50 hours on the budget one and 20 hours on the reconciliation or something like that. Right. So that being the case, one of the only things you can still do to monkey with the passage of a bill like that under the rules is, well, we won't be able to filibuster it, but we can file 500 amendments on the thing. And you supposedly you got to have consideration of every amendment that's germane and timely filed. And so how do they deal with a time limit plus 500 amendments in which to fit into the time limit? And the answer is you schedule them in such a way that the ones that actually have maybe a chance to pass and might be determinative to the outcome or whatever are scheduled first, and you just debate them until you run out of time. And then the rest of the amendments you don't really debate. You get a minute to get up and say, my name is Senator Jones, and I've got an amendment, and it would something to Medicaid, Medicare, blah, blah, blah. And then they say, that's it, the time has expired, and you have a vote. And it's insane because you're voting on things that are, certainly could be considered substantive. They have a chance to pass, and the bill has a chance to pass. Major policy changes could be made. And senators and representatives alike don't much like doing things that way. You might be able to use the time waiting for your amendment to come up to persuade people behind the scenes in more than a minute. This is actually a very good one, and I know we're not going to be able to talk about it for very long, but here's what it does. Here it is on paper, and you got to round up your votes that way. Anyway, so in the vote-a-rama, there's a billion things. And also, one of the weird things about the Senate and the House can to some extent do this as well, but you can reconsider votes. You can move to reconsider a vote that was previously taken. And but in order to make that motion, you have to have voted on the winning side. So you occasionally see majority leaders of either party voting in ways that make it look like that person is at odds with the rest of their party, but they are in fact voting with the winning side with an eye later on moving to reconsider that vote. I don't know. That doesn't make any particular sense for the Collins thing, except if the Collins vote is coming up soon, and in order to keep her in good humor for the consideration of the rest of the... But if you announce you're going to do this, But if she's play acting along with you, then I guess it's okay, right? If you announce ahead of time that I'm only going to humor her to get her to vote normally, like a normal Republican should, on the rest of the amendments, and then at the end of the vote-a-rama, I will move to reconsider the Collins amendment and then vote no, as will a couple of other people, and then kick it out of there. How about then having secured her votes? Well, they'll still, of course, have to do vote on final passage. She'll presumably be mad and vote no, but by the time they get around to deciding whether or not that's what they're going to do, they will have counted the other votes. And if they can afford to lose Collins's vote, then they'll do that thing. They'll take her thing out of the bill. People will see it reported in the newspaper, but they probably won't understand it or care very much. And so for the 20 hours that they're debating the amendments, the news will be Collins's amendment prevails. Medicare or whatever it is she's aiming at is saved. And then everyone will go to sleep, and then they will unsave it and then pass the bill. And everyone will say, but I thought, oh, gosh, I guess I just don't understand things. Now, I don't know whether that's what he's talking about with a wraparound, but that's certainly within the realm of possibility. And you shouldn't, you should expect Republicans to do some things that way. Everybody does. Not quite in the same fashion and not always targeting the same really good and important things in unfair ways, but people have pulled tricks like this before. All right, so I'm trying to see where these, I don't know, I haven't seen this comment he's talking about. I went scrolling back in Dayan's feed, and I'm just not seeing it, which is weird, too. Also, very odd is it looks like, I don't know, I guess Twitter is now completely screwed up so that every David Dayan post is not up in chronological order. I went to go back to look at his feed to see if there were other posts in proximity to the one Greg provided to give us some context, and it's not working. So I'm going to say forget it for now. I'll go and study it later on and see if I can figure out what in particular he was talking about. I mean, this definitely was from this morning, and again, in response to Richard Rubin saying that Roger Marshall, who you might have forgotten, as I usually do, that he's in the Senate, is going to vote for the Collins Amendment. But, we'll see whether David means that it's all going to be voted on all over again. And they'll just say, I voted for it last time with my fingers crossed. This is essentially what it comes down to. All right. So other things that I pocketed while we still have Pocket, and next week is the end of Pocket operations per se. So we'll use it while we got it. What do we need to bring you up to date with? Well, there's a lot. With regard to the Iran and its possible reconstruction of major and or possibly minor damage instead to its nuclear facilities, lots of things happening here. One, there's the issue of we don't know how the damage went, and to the extent you want the it's a nuanced situation. We don't want the Iranian nuclear program hanging around, right? We'd rather not have a nuclear Iran. Now, Iran says that's not what they were doing at these sites, and depending on whether or not you believe them, you will have a different opinion of how destroyed you wish the thing was. And then, of course, there's the complicating issue of Donald Trump being president of the United States and effectuating this raid. And you might want to say, look, I told you Donald Trump was inept. And if the nuclear sites are not obliterated, then it shows that he's inept. So that's good, except that also means then we haven't really set back their nuclear program, and now they're mad, which is, also bad. So you don't want to root against, that's, if it comes right down to it, do you root against Donald Trump, or do you, if you do, then you're pro-Iranian? Well, no, I'm anti-both, but I'm not rooting against Trump. I'm just pointing out, if it's obliterated, I want to know it's really obliterated. If he's going to say it's obliterated, it better damn well be obliterated. It would be much better if it was. The problem is it may turn out that it's not, and he's telling everybody is, and then we'll all be shocked when we get nuked by Iran. I don't think that even not destroying the nuclear program in Iran actually results in them nuking us necessarily. So there's a lot of leaps going on. Anyway, Trump over the weekend apparently spoke to Maria Bartiromo, if I have that correct. Mediaite has covered the coverage of that coverage, I guess. I don't know what to tell you about this. But like I said, he taped the thing with her on Friday and, said, yeah, we totally obliterated it. But what about these people who say it wasn't obliterated? Well, the people who said it wasn't obliterated are liars and also leakers. They leaked a lie, I guess, is what he's hoping you'll believe. But what happened was, I think they leaked the truth, and that's what you usually leak when you think somebody else is lying. But, there's games going on all over the place. Who knows? Anyway, he says, new era for press freedom in the United States. Remember, the press just really, for some reason, love covering Donald Trump and love setting him up to be the strongly strong leader, even though he keeps threatening press freedom. And now he'll be threatening the actual freedom of individuals, members of the press, like the freedom to walk around as opposed to being in prison. Mediaite reports and shows us the video. Watch, they admonish us to do. Trump suggests he'll pressure CNN and New York Times reporters to give up their sources on Iran strike stories and then prosecute the leakers. Now, he also insinuates, I think, in this that he is so intent on getting to prosecuting the leakers that he will beforehand prosecute the journalists if they don't assist him in prosecuting the leakers by giving up their names, which those of you who have lived in the United States at all or understand the way we've interpreted freedom. Yes. Freedom of the press under the Constitution, the First Amendment. Yeah. Sorry about that, but so we've interpreted things quite differently. But of course, as you know, he's somehow convincing members of the Supreme Court to change their minds whenever he's involved in a case. The way they reported over at Mediaite, according to Joe DiPaolo, is President Trump is suggesting his administration will pressure reporters into giving up sources on their recent stories on the impact of the military strike on Iran, and then potentially prosecuting those sources. In an interview on Fox News' Sunday Morning Futures, anchor, I'll double check it here, Maria Bartiromo, not Baratromo as I once thought, but I think I said it right all day long here. Bartiromo, maybe I didn't. I don't know. Who cares? I hate that lady. Anyway, she asked about a social media post on Thursday in which Trump wrote, quote, "The Democrats are the ones who leaked the information on the," he's now saying in all caps, he's calling it the perfect flight. Remember the perfect phone call? Well, no, this is the perfect flight. Yeah, it had bombs dropped during it, which made it even more perfect in his view. The perfect flight to the nuclear sites in Iran. And again, some random capitalization there. They should be prosecuted. They should be prosecuted, Trump said again in the Fox News interview, which was taped on Friday and aired on Sunday. Who specifically, Bartiromo asked, because she's a journalist. She might be interested in this. You can find out, Trump said. If they wanted, they could find out easily. And that is probably true, but that's not an answer to the question. Bartiromo, I think, is asking who are the journalists specifically that should be prosecuted. But I guess not. Well, now that I think about it, now that they're saying, I'm going to pressure journalists to give up the names of leakers who should be prosecuted. Yeah, okay. I guess that makes some more sense. Now he thinks, of course, the people who leak the information are Democrats. That may or may not be true, but he intends to claim that Democrats were the ones who were leakers, whether he gets the information from reporters or not. But you should not forget he is going to get around and then eventually, or maybe first, prosecute the journalists when he pressures them, tell me who your source was, and they'll say no. He'll say, I'm going to threaten the following things. Your family's safety, your life, the business model of the outlet you work with. It could be any combination of these things. We're going to pull your license, as he sometimes says. That was for CNN, for instance. We're gonna pull your license so you can't broadcast. It's a cable network. They don't have that kind of license. That's not a thing. Right? We're gonna talk to the cable companies and we're gonna tell them we're gonna put your CEO in jail if CNN is on your cable network. Well, most of the distribution is by satellite. We're gonna shoot down the satellites with Golden Dome, and then So he comes up with a threat for everybody, and so the necessary first step here is to threaten to prosecute the journalists. Specifically who? You can find out If they wanted, they could find out easily, by which I mean the leakers, not the, yeah. So he sort of switches subjects, I think. Maybe she was really only asking about which leakers. The president has repeatedly come down on CNN and the New York Times in recent days for breaking stories on the impact of last Saturday's attack on Iran, even threatening to sue them, and why not, over reporting that he has called, quote, unpatriotic. And as everybody knows, you can definitely, if you're the president, you can sue people who aren't patriotic enough. That is an invention I just made up, but I did so at the prompting of Donald Trump, who says he can sue. Now, he thinks he can sue anybody, and he thinks he can win, because he did just sue a bunch of media companies for stuff that you also can't sue about, and yet somehow won his. He didn't win the lawsuits in court. He won big settlements, which take the form of something that looks like a normal way in which somebody can be said to have won a lawsuit. But it isn't really in the same form. This is just him threatening to use the power of the government to screw up everybody's business model and or possibly create legal jeopardy for them personally, criminal legal jeopardy. So they just say, let's settle instead. But that's a win for him. That's normally something that normal plaintiffs can't do to people, or if they could, they won't because they have integrity and they don't want to use the power of the government that way. But he does. And so, it's accurate to say there was a legal settlement, but the wording does a lot of work for people and makes it sound like it's a legitimate legal settlement, which it isn't. But because he just wrung tens of millions of dollars for free that he gets to pocket out of other big media outlets, he figures, I will just do that again. On what basis? What do you mean on what basis? There was no basis the first time. But if you want a basis, it's for doing an unpatriotic thing. And that's enough for him. Both outlets, to return to the reporting here, reported on preliminary intelligence assessments which found that the damage of the strikes were far less than the president claimed. Trump has repeatedly insisted that 3 Iranian nuclear sites, this is as parenthetically, were obliterated. The preliminary intelligence assessment from the Defense Intelligence Agency said the bombing only set Iran's nuclear program back a few months. I guess he hasn't gotten around to it yet, but eventually, I guess, if things go poorly or he just feels like doing more things later on, he can arrest and or prosecute and or sue the Defense Intelligence Agency. Who particularly? You'll find out 2 weeks. I think that actually gets said in the interview with, what's her name here? Bartiromo. I don't remember who he's talking about, but he does a 2 weeks thing, by the way, in this interview. And he laughs at it, which is amazing. I've been saying that the reporter should be laughing, and he laughed, which, come on. That means he knows it. Trump went on to explain how he would go about finding the leakers. Ready? You go up and tell the reporter, this is really great. This is great. This is his version of how things go. And it's very revealing. I'm sure Trump has thought this is the way the government has worked forever and that he's entitled to do things this way. But it is, 8 to 10-year-olds understanding of how stuff works. You go up to the reporter and you tell the reporter, national security, who gave it? And to which normally people will say, what? Well, in this context, if you've been listening to my entire conversation, you would know what I'm talking about. National security, who gave you the information about the damage assessment? Oh, I'm not telling. It's a confidential source. Right. So then I will send you to jail if you don't. How can you do that? First Amendment. Yeah, well, national security. Says who? Says me. I'm the president. I determine what national security is. So that's the plan. National security, who gave it? You have to do that. And I suspect we'll be doing things like that. So there you go. That's the big, fully developed plan for how to get the information that he needs to prosecute or threaten to prosecute reporters to help him get to where he can prosecute or threaten to prosecute the leakers. You just go up to them and say, national security.
And then we had to suffer the fake news with the fake news in CNN and the New York Times was
I didn't even
saying, well, maybe it wasn't as good as Trump said. Maybe it wasn't totally obliterated, but it was destroyed, but not just horrible. And I could see it happening. And they tried to build that into a story. What? And then it turned out, no, it was obliterated like nobody's ever seen before. And that meant the end to their nuclear ambitions, at least for a period of time. And, a lot of people have said, well, do you think they're going to start again? I said, the last thing they want to do right now is think about nuclear. They have to put themselves back into condition and shape.
Which, of course, only makes the story of there being construction equipment there. The construction equipment doesn't tell me whether or not it's obliterated, but it tells me that Trump was instantly wrong about, do you think they're going to start again? No, absolutely not. Just like, do you think the so-called ceasefire between Iran and Israel is going to last? Not only yes, but forever and ever and ever. Whoops, instantly wrong. All right, so there's a little bit more here, another 20 seconds or so of exchange between Lips Bartiromo here and Donald Trump.
You tweeted the Democrats leaked an intelligence.
They should be prosecuted.
Who specifically? Do we know who did it? Will you be able to find out?
They could find out. If they wanted, they could find out easily. You go up and tell the reporter, national security, who gave it. You have to do that. And I suspect we'll be doing things like that.
Well, those pilots were so courageous.
Anyway, so, okay, by the way, that was an interesting feature of Pocket as I guess they begin to shut things down. I didn't even get to the original posting and all the way through to the Mediaite site. Normally, the even auto-playing video doesn't just crop up that way in the Pocket version of the article. But this time it did, just as well. Okay, so let's get that off the screen because who knows whether that'll play again. And no one wants to hear that twice. So anyway, that's Donald Trump's childlike understanding of national security. You go up to a reporter and you say, national security, give me your source. And then they do. They will eventually because you'll prosecute them and they'll get scared. But, all right. And by the way, will you be able to find people in the Justice Department to prosecute those cases? Probably. You can certainly bring them in. And, of course, anybody who objects will just be fired. That brings us to the story from the Associated Press, a brief one from over the weekend. Oh, first I need to verify for the AP that I'm a human. It's very important. Justice Department abruptly fires 3 prosecutors involved in the January 6th criminal cases. AP sources say. Which ones say it? National security. Who gave it? It's true, and they're proud to say so, but we want to prosecute journalists. So who gave it? So this is the last stage of this. We already knew that the Pam Bondi, Emil Bove, Donald Trump Justice Department was reassigning or putting on administrative leave or demoting prosecutors who had done their jobs, taken on the cases that were assigned to them, and prosecuted people involved in January 6th. So there's this sort of bizarro version of reconstruction going on in the Justice Department, whereby Pam Bondi has agreed to, turn everything upside down and use normal procedure and normal terminology to do the heavy lifting of rewriting history. They are prosecuting people who prosecuted the cases against people who staged an insurrection and tried to overthrow the government of the United States and stormed the Capitol. Not only are they now been pardoned, but it is now illegal for you to say that the things that they did were illegal. Wow, that's not great. But there we are. The Justice Department on Friday fired at least 3 prosecutors involved in the U.S. Capitol riot criminal cases. The latest moves by the Trump administration targeting attorneys connected to the massive prosecution of the January 6th attack, according to 2 people familiar with the matter, says Alana Dworkin Richer. Now, of course, if Trump wants to say national security, who are your 2 sources? We'll see whether Alana makes a fight or not. Those dismissed include 2 attorneys who worked as supervisors overseeing the January 6th prosecutions in the U.S. Attorney's Office in Washington, as well as a line attorney, like the people who actually have been in court that day, who prosecuted cases stemming from the Capitol attack. They spoke on the condition of anonymity to discuss personnel matters, but you get the gist of it. I don't think we need to spend too much time on this one, although there is another interesting clue or 2 about just how ridiculous Pam Bondi is. But essentially what's happening here, if you want to boil it down to the the bare essentials. People broke into the Capitol and smeared feces on the walls, and the U.S. Attorney's Office said, yeah, that's actually against the law. So we're prosecuting you. So if they arrested people who broke the windows, smashed their way in, punched a cop, took a dump, smeared it on the wall, and got caught, the upshot of that is now that the Pam Bondi Donald Trump Justice Department has had its way, is the person who pooped and smeared it on the wall is free to go and exonerated, and the person who said, hey, you can't do that, we're going to take you to court and put you away, is out of a job. Ta-da! Pam Bondi, by the way, sent them letters that did not provide a reason for their removal, but instead said, Article 2. I have an Article 2 that says I can do this. That's really what it said. Hi, everybody. It's me, David Waldman. Yes, the same guy who interrupts you all the time. Interrupting you one more time just to tell you again, another reminder that your contributions are what keep this show on the air, and Patreon.com, Patreon.com, is still among the easiest ways to make the sustaining subscription donations that keep us afloat. Are you ready for the pep talk about how our Patreon campaign is still going strong and growing? Well, too bad. Yeah, the plain fact is we actually are headed in the wrong direction, and whereas we once had about 175 monthly patrons, we're now actually down below 150. Time to recruit some more. Not exactly the kind of news I wanted to share, but there it is. For those of you in a position to support the show, Patreon.com does make it easy to make those secure, recurring monthly contributions to do so. Patreon.com/KagroX gets you straight to our donation page. We've been through a lot together. The worst of the pandemic, we hope. The worst of the insurrection, we hope. So go ahead and treat yourself. You don't need an excuse. Give yourself the gift of a little something you enjoy in life. Support the show. And of course, if you happen to prefer using PayPal or even the Square Cash app, we're up and running on those options too. So thanks again, everyone, for all your support. We couldn't, or at least shouldn't, do it without you. Hope you'll be on board soon too. Thanks for all your support. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. Let's see. Okay, let me give you one more minute or so on the prosecutor's firing. I just thought this was sort of interesting. Pam Bondi had to send him a letter. Didn't have to, but did send them a letter that said, you're fired. And it didn't really state why. Although if you ask Pam Bondi, she'll say, yes, it did. It said, quote, it says this. A letter that was received by one of the prosecutors was signed by Attorney General Pam Bondi. The letter did not provide a reason for the removal effective immediately, citing only, quote, Article 2 of the United States Constitution and the laws of the United States, unquote, according to a copy seen by the Associated Press. Well, I haven't seen the copy, but I assume what that means is, dear so-and-so, you are hereby relieved of duty, effective immediately, and relieved of from employment in the United States Attorney's Office for the District of Columbia, by authority of Article 2 of the United States Constitution and the laws of the United States, period. Right, that's it. So I guess, I don't know whether she was looking for filler or whether she felt like, or somebody told her you have to provide justification legally for the firing, and they were just like, well, I don't know, the justification is Article 2 of the Constitution, that's the president, and the laws of the United States. Now, usually that's subject to some interpretation, but we're not going to do that in this letter. So that's it. I thought that was interesting, just to get that sort of summary thing. It's reminiscent of, there was a dumb thing that the Republicans insisted on at some point, where they said Congress, every time we're for small government, of course, and we therefore insist that every bill introduced in Congress must have a section up at the top that shows the constitutional or statutory authority for the power you claim to be exercising in this bill. And it just came down to basically people are like, my authority is the United States Constitution. Well, which part? All of it, Katie. And so, they just get around things that way. So this letter is a little bit reminiscent of that. The rest of the stuff you pretty much know, though it's worth remarking here that one, Ed Martin makes an appearance, and so does Emile Bove, who still has a judicial nomination pending to the Third Circuit Court of Appeals. They're actually considering putting on the Court of Appeals a guy who is, according to this article, in January, then, what was his role then? He was then the acting Deputy Attorney General Emile Bove ordered the firings of about 24 prosecutors who had been hired for temporary assignments to support the January 6th cases, but were moved into permanent roles after Trump's presidential win in November. Bove said he would not, quote, tolerate subversive personnel actions by the previous administration. Well, that's a hell of a statement all by itself. But, it's, whatever. They fired some people who were brought on to prosecute January 6th cases, and now it was clear that they were not going to prosecute January 6th cases. Now, the previous administration used existing federal employment law to make them permanent and therefore say you actually are not supposed to be able to fire them unless it's clearly for cause, and you'll have to show, what that cause is. And they said, to hell with that, we're firing them anyway. But, that's what the move was all about. Okay, so a couple of other things that are related, also parked in Pocket, that we want to try to get to. But I guess Pocket don't want to do it. So, go back to that. What are you talking? Oh, all right. Well, I don't know. The computer is a little hinky right now, so we'll open up another Pocket page and do things that way instead. And all right. So what's imperative? There's an awful lot, and I guess we have a whole week to talk about some of those things. But I guess it's all they're all legal stories in one sense or another. So which one will we go to first? How about, there's so many possibilities. I really can't, it's difficult to tell, but I will have to pick one or the other. How about this one? The New York Times, with a thing that'll take us 15 minutes, allegedly, to get through. We can't spend that long on it, but a lengthy article, therefore. Trump vowed to dismantle MS-13. Oh, we're going to obliterate them. Oh, they'll be so obliterated, like nobody's ever seen before in about 2 weeks. All right. His deal with Bukele, the president of El Salvador, threatens that effort. I would say you file this one alongside news that we read the other day. Didn't we? I think we got it on the air, that Trump was applying pressure to try to get France to end its prosecution of Marine Le Pen, right? Everyone remembers this. I think we snuck that in on Friday, and I don't think we read the entirety of the article, but we got through most of it. It was from Politico Europe, and I won't reread the entirety of the article, but the part that we didn't get to was, for those of us who may have missed it along the way, what exactly were the charges against Le Pen? And that part, perhaps we can skip down to the end and tell you what it was. In terms of her conviction, the reporter reveals to us, says Le Pen and her party were accused of illicitly using money from the European Parliament, right? The European Union has its own legislative body, the European Parliament, and they used European Parliament funds to pay for party employees. What the hell is her party? Is it National Front? Is that what they call it? I forget already. But at any rate, those of you who are more familiar with French politics know offhand what it was. And I don't even know, do they mention the name of the party in all of this? Yeah, National Rally. I'm sorry. Same thing, same difference. I don't know whether it was National Front is something else at some point ever, or is that an American extremist front group? I don't know. Anyway, National Rally used this money. So they were accused of illicitly using money from the European Parliament to pay for a National Rally Party or several party employees who did not work on EU-related business. They were just, I guess, domestic meddlers of some kind. I don't know what they were up to, but they weren't using the money correctly because, you're supposed to, the European Parliament will give you money for your stupid party so long as you use it for employees who are working on getting more of your party members elected to the European Parliament. But use it for something else, that's a problem. Okay. Now that might be confusing or difficult to monitor or enforce, but that's the law. But they said, well, it shouldn't be, is essentially what their objection. The prosecution put forward several pieces of damning evidence during hundreds of hours of court proceedings. Le Pen's legal team did not dispute the substance of the charges. Instead, they argued that the distinction between a politician's work as a lawmaker and as a party member was artificial. The controversy stems from the fact that the court gave Le Pen an immediate 5-year ban on running for public office, which would knock her out of the 2027 presidential election, barring a successful appeal. Typically in France, defendants can have their punishments temporarily lifted by appealing a verdict when they return to being presumed innocent, you see. But the court made the rare, though not unprecedented, decision that Le Pen's crimes were so grave. How grave were they? They were so grave, and that the risk of recidivism was so high that her ban should be handed down immediately. Her appeal is slated for 2026. That is a very interesting thing all by itself. And basically they're saying, well, not necessarily isolating the United States case, but probably had in mind, well, we just saw what happened in the United States, where they had Donald Trump dead to rights on several criminal charges, and several more were pending, but they allowed him to run for office. He was elected to office, and now all of the legitimate convictions against him are going to come to nothing, and all of the prosecutions waiting to go are going to come to nothing. We don't want that. We're not the United States. We don't have to have a suicide pact with ourselves. Let's impose the punishment now. Now, it also turns out, we must have mentioned in our reading of this on Friday, that this all came about. It didn't happen, but it was the recommendation of a Trump State Department official that the United States pressure the French not to impose punishment on Le Pen now, or maybe ever. And we mentioned who this person was, and now there's a little bit more background on what this person is all about. So we're talking about, wasn't it Samuel Sampson? And we thought, oh my gosh, not only a dumb idea, but something of a dumb name as well. Samuel Sampson, this in the subheader of the article. Samuel Sampson, a political appointee, made the explosive recommendation as Le Pen eyes the presidency in 2027. Now, a little bit about Sampson before we cut out of this nonsense. Sampson is a wizened old head, obviously. No, he's a recent graduate of the University of Texas at Austin, which by itself is not damning, but according to his LinkedIn profile, he is one of several young conservatives to join the State Department's ranks since Trump's return to the White House in January. So just like having a 22-year-old in charge of counterterrorism, we now have a 20-something who's making recommendations in the State Department. Let's use federal funds to pay for the legal defense of French Nazi Marine Le Pen. Sure. Earlier this year, this young man wrote an article for the State Department Substack. Did you know they had one? I told you there were Nazis on Substack. Titled The Need for Civilizational Allies in Europe, meaning Nazis, in which he waxed lyrical about natural law while calling on Europe to reclaim Western heritage. Now, it doesn't say that he's a recent graduate of the law school at the University of Texas at Austin, just a recent graduate. What age? I don't know. Samson, like Secretary of State Marco Rubio, criticized Germany's decision to label the far-right Alternative for Germany party as an extremist organization, and reiterated Trump administration diatribes accusing Europe of cracking down on free speech rights for Nazis. He also slammed pushback on Christian nations, like Hungary. Samson's efforts are reflective of the Trump administration's efforts to support aligned political movements around the world and boost friendly governments. Trump administration officials have routinely chided Europe for overstepping their efforts against the far right while turning an eye to the human rights abuses in El Salvador and Argentina. And El Salvador is where we started in all this. We'll get back to it. The office in which Samson works, the Bureau of Democracy, Human Rights, and Labor, and Nazis, was created to, quote, advance American security by promoting respect for human rights, bolstering democratic institutions, empowering civil society, promoting and protecting freedom of expression, and upholding internationally recognized worker rights. So he's not doing a great job. Unless, of course, the job is to wreck the place, in which case you're doing fantastic. So there you go. That brings us back then to the news from later on and over the weekend that Trump, and I haven't grabbed the article about this, but I guess we'll try and do that now. Trump likewise also says that he wants to bring pressure to bear on Israel, which you'd think, hey, that's weird because I thought he was good friends with Netanyahu. How is he going to pressure Israel? And the answer is, I'm going to pressure the rest of Israel not to prosecute Netanyahu. It's enough with this already, even though they haven't actually gone ahead and done anything. But we all know that, for instance, the Gaza war is being initiated. We all know that people suspect that the Gaza war was initiated and has dragged on for as long as it has, because it is helpful to Netanyahu, who the Israeli courts otherwise would have dead to rights and could probably remove from office. But instead, Trump says, let Bibi go. This is a USA Today article from, I think it first came from the Times of Israel, but let Bibi go. Trump says U.S. is not going to stand for Netanyahu's prosecution, which is weird because it's kind of up to Israel, and everything else they want to jump out of the way of Israel for, but not this thing. Isn't that interesting? He picks and chooses what to jump out of the way for. So there we have it. Stop prosecuting Netanyahu. Stop prosecuting Le Pen. And now the newest addition to stop prosecuting is the very counterintuitive insistence that we stop prosecuting MS-13, the people, the prosecution of which Donald Trump ran on as a major tenet of his campaign, but only in certain situations. What's going on? Now over to the New York Times. Trump vowed to dismantle MS-13. His deal with Bukele threatens that effort. Top gang leaders being sent back to El Salvador were part of a lengthy federal investigation that has amassed evidence of a corrupt pact between the Bukele government and MS-13. Isn't that something? Everybody in the world gets part of this byline. Alan Fuhr is the first among them. Maria Abi Habib, Zolan Cano Youngs, Annie Corial, it's my best guess at that pronunciation there, and William K. Rashbaum and Devlin Barrett. Wow. And together they interviewed more than 30 people. Who are they? We're going to arrest them. 30 people familiar with the federal investigation of MS-13 or the dealings between the United States and El Salvador. They also obtained internal government records and reviewed court filings. And here's what they found as quickly as possible. Even among the brutal ranks of the transnational gang called MS-13, Vladimir Arevalo Chavez stands out as a highly effective manager of murder, prosecutors say. Known as Vampiro, guess what that might mean? He has been accused of overseeing killings in at least 3 countries, of migrants in Mexico, which Trump is in favor of, I'm assuming, rivals in El Salvador, which Trump is in favor of, I'm assuming, and his own compatriots in the United States, which until recently Trump was probably in favor of. His arrest in February of 2023 was a major triumph for American investigators, under the Biden administration. They stopped a major murderer of MS-13. But Biden did it, so get rid of it. Literally, that's where we are. So, his arrest in February of 2023, major triumph for American investigators who only months earlier had accused him and 12 other gang leaders of terrorism, bloodshed, and corruption in a wide-ranging federal indictment on Long Island, which, was just involved in commenting negatively on a New York City election, as you know. But this April, that is, the prosecutors who brought those charges suddenly and quietly asked the federal judge to drop them, and probably will later be fired so they can't tell the story of how they were asked to do that. Citing national security concerns, I'm going to do that in his voice, they said they needed to return Mr. Arevalo to El Salvador, his homeland. Isn't that something? Kilmar Abrego Garcia, not supposed to go, but they sent him. So, hey, and not even not even from El Salvador, was he? I don't know. I forget what his personal story was. Wasn't he from Venezuela, but they sent him to El Salvador anyway? Okay. Anyway, that's not necessary to straighten out right now. The surprising reversal, isn't it surprising? Came shortly after a deal the Trump administration struck this year with Nayib Bukele, El Salvador's president, who agreed, of course, to accept more than 200 migrants expelled from the United States into a prison he built for terrorists. Well, it's not that we're sending him to this prison, we're freeing him. That's odd, don't you think? In exchange for helping President Trump carry out his deportation agenda, the United States paid El Salvador millions of dollars, adding an important sweetener at Mr. Bukele's request, the return of key MS-13 leaders in American custody. Officials from both countries have said the gang leaders are being sent back to face justice. Now, I'm not certain whether we should believe that, but that's the claim. But the Trump administration has not acknowledged another reason Mr. Bukele would want them back. U.S. prosecutors have amassed substantial evidence of a corrupt pact between the Salvadoran government and some high-ranking MS-13 leaders who they say agreed to drive down violence, that's a good thing, I guess, and bolster Mr. Bukele politically in exchange for cash and perks in jail, a New York Times investigation found. So they're not crazy. They're not saying you have to free us. You just have to make life in jail comfortable for us. Okay. Hey, that's a very reasonable demand. The deal with El Salvador, heralded by Mr. Trump as a crackdown on crime, is actually undermining a long-standing U.S. inquiry into the gang, according to multiple people with knowledge of the initiatives. 2 major ongoing cases against some of the gang's highest-ranking leaders could be badly damaged, and other defendants could be less likely to cooperate or testify in court, they said. But it doesn't matter again, because it was Biden prosecuting that law, and Biden does everything badly, including the stuff that we say we want to happen. We're going to prosecute those MS-13 guys. Well, Biden already was. Yeah, but he was doing such a bad job. Yeah, so does that mean you're going to step in and do a better job? No, we're going to let them go. And that is also tied to Kilmar Abrego Garcia's case, by the way. In another article somewhere else, you will find that it is the case that as they were finally forced to bring Abrego Garcia back to the United States, they only felt they could save face by saying, well, we're only bringing him back to the United States because we're bringing him back here to prosecute him for the crime of human trafficking, which is highly doubtful he actually was engaged in, but they have found someone to testify to that effect. And the person they found to testify to that effect, among others, is a 3-time convicted felon and otherwise undocumented migrant who was in prison already. But they're letting that guy out of prison because he says, I'll testify against Kilmar Abrego Garcia for you. So yes, once again, they mistakenly said this guy, Abrego Garcia, was a criminal and they were going to arrest him and deport him. They were forced to admit that that wasn't the case, then bring him back. So, yeah, well, we say it really was true that he was a criminal, and we can prove it by freeing somebody we also have arrested for the same claims, except we're going to let him out so that he'll say Abrego Garcia was the guy. Okay, except not okay. Really, go to therapy and learn to admit when you make mistakes instead of doing stuff like this. You can't let this happen. But you can, because you can get away with it, and some people think it's funny, and they're going to vote for it. The deal has also undercut Trump's own repeated pledges to dismantle MS-13, the article continues, a central plank of his tough on crime brand. But to hell with it. Earlier this year, Attorney General Pam Bondi issued an internal memo calling for the total elimination of the gang, unless not, which the White House has designated as a foreign terrorist organization. So yeah, free some terrorists because they're cooperating with a foreign government. Also, give me a plane, and I can't wait to go to Saudi Arabia. You tell me what's happening. In his first term, Mr. Trump established a group of prosecutors and investigators known as the Task Force Dworkin, that brought expansive cases against the gang's leadership. Some who were part of that effort are now alarmed by the deal with Mr. Bukele and worry that he wants the gang leaders back to prevent them from revealing damaging information about his government. Maybe. The Times investigation found that U.S. officials have had strong indications for years of the troubling relationship between the Bukele administration and MS-13 and its leaders, and had begun scrutinizing Mr. Bukele himself. And I'm sure that they did. And I'm sure they're interested in continuing so that they can have leverage over him and make him do things that he would otherwise not do, that millions of dollars of payments to him can't make him do on our behalf. The findings are based on government documents and interviews with more than 30 people who have knowledge of the Dworkin inquiry or the U.S.-El Salvador relationship, many of whom spoke on condition of anonymity to describe the ongoing federal investigation. National Security, what's your name? The first Trump administration received a warning about the secret pact as early as August 2020 from a top Salvadoran official who showed up at the United States Embassy in San Salvador to share information. That was still Trump administration. The following year, the Treasury Department imposed sanctions on that same official and another top Bukele aide after determining they had offered MS-13 leaders money, mobile phones, and prostitutes in jail in exchange for their help bringing down the homicide rate and securing votes. Federal investigators were examining whether some U.S. aid provided to El Salvador was being illicitly funneled to benefit MS-13. That would be really something. At one point, a gang leader ordered the assassination of an FBI agent working on the case in El Salvador to stymie the investigation. The agent and his family had to leave the country, but thank God they found out early and did do that. Federal investigators had begun looking at Mr. Bukele's activities, taking steps to request a review of his bank records to examine possible misappropriation of U.S. funds, according to Christopher Musto, a task force member at the time. ProPublica previously reported some aspects of the case, including the focus on Mr. Bukele. Well, it was groundbreaking, Mr. Musto said of the Dworkin investigation, noting that some agents risked their lives to help track down and detain MS-13 leaders. We went through a lot to do it. While he broadly supports Mr. Trump's deportation of gang members, Mr. Musto said it was striking to see him host Mr. Bukele at the White House to celebrate their deal. He was dirty, Mr. Musto said of the Salvadoran president. He was corrupt, and now he's sitting next to the president in the Oval Office, and he's got prime access to the leader of the free world. That's a story we've heard before, of course. Mr. Bukele has repeatedly denied that there was a pact between his government and gang leaders. Salvadoran officials did not respond to requests for comment. Abigail Jackson, White House spokeswoman, said in a statement that any suggestion that President Trump isn't successfully eradicating terrorist criminal gangs from the United States is just plain stupid. She said the administration was grateful for President Bukele's partnership and the use of his maximum security prison, adding, there is no better place for these sick illegal criminals than one in which they can get cell phones, money, and prostitutes. Because reasons. A Justice Department spokesperson said in a statement that the agency was, quote, focused on making America safe again, which includes ending the invasion of violent criminal illegal aliens, unless they're not doing that. A spokesman for the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Eastern District of New York, which brought the two MS-13 leadership cases, declined to comment. That we can't make up enough BS to keep up with this. It remains unclear how many MS-13 leaders the Trump administration has sent back to El Salvador so far, or how many more it plans to return. A little bit like, feels like flying bin Laden family members out of the United States post 9/11, in a way. At least one of them, Cesar Lopez Larios, was put on a plane. That's why it feels that way, to El Salvador in March with other migrants sent to the maximum security prison. Mr. Lopez had been in U.S. custody for less than a year and was awaiting trial on Long Island for narco-terrorism conspiracy charges. But here you go. I don't know. Let's see if we have time to find out what happened to the guy when he made it back to El Salvador. Lawyers for Mr. Arevalo, who remains in federal custody after pleading not guilty, have been trying to prevent him from facing a similar fate. Okay, so it sounds like they don't want that fate. Maybe he was sent to prison in El Salvador, after all, at least that one guy. In a recent letter to the judge overseeing the case, they argued that the Trump administration had made a corrupt deal to send defendants in the case back to be silenced by the Bukele administration. So, I mean, it could actually be really awful. Like, that guy, if they think that guy has knowledge of the deal and might talk and can't be persuaded by getting perks in prison to stay quiet, well, then maybe he never makes it to the prison, but instead is, I don't know, falls in a wood chipper or something like that, or falls out of the plane on the way home. The government's sudden reversal troubles Richard Lochner, the former principal of Brentwood Ross High School on Long Island, where nearly a decade ago, two of his students were murdered by MS-13 members. And where are our angel parents on this one? Are they not around and saying maybe we prefer that they stay in prison here in the United States? I guess not. Even though he has a star-spangled tie in this picture, which suggests that Trump should be there to take a picture with him, talking about how he's going to stay tough on crime. But I guess not. Then the rest of the article is illustrated with pictures of Donald Trump speaking in front of uniformed police officers and how they're protecting American lives, except when they're not. More about that coming next, I'm sure.
Radio.com. You have been listening to Kagro in the Morning with David Waldman.
Of course, that's because Justice Putnam comes next right here on Netroots Radio with the West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Top of the news for today, a Trump lawyer got some brutal disbarment news. So stay tuned to find out who and what that news was. Probably going to be tickled with a feather. And we're going to check in on the latest insurrection in Idaho. My goodness, we didn't get to that one. See you tomorrow.